I'm assuming, because they said maintenance. So I couldn't stay away from y'all 2 weeks in a row. So let's get at it. Rihanna. I'm not a fan of the music, just like, with Beyonce, but I respect the hustle. I respect the grind. And Rihanna, after Fenty, because remember, she shut it down. She sold $1 million like in the first hour. Well, she has done it again. And kudos to Rihanna. Rihanna, Umbrella, Ella. Why she only rhyme syllables and not... She should call Chris Brown, because he rhyme whole endings or words, not just... Okay, never mind. But anyway, she has done it again, not with the music, but with her entrepreneurship. Rihanna has systematically shut down the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Now, let me tell you why that's important. You know it's going to be good when I start sipping. It's important because Rihanna came out with her own lingerie line. Nudes for black women that really looked nude. They always just give us a black and a brown. And we are so much more diverse than that. And that's kind of what she did with her makeup line. The Victoria's Secret fashion show is well known for the fact that it was very few of us that got to participate. And as a model, that was a huge milestone for those that were up and coming in the modeling world. So if that was your career, it was coveted to get the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Well, if you were a woman of color, you weren't going to get it. So it was a way to stop you from rising in the ranks. So when Tyra Banks became the first black woman to walk in that fashion show, it was huge. Because, look, Naomi had already crossed all kinds of color lines and boundaries. I mean, this heifer has diamond and emerald mines named after her. Don't sleep on Cuckoo Naomi. She kind of throwed up. She got anger management. Remember she beat people up all the time. Okay, never mind, because we're not talking about that. But we are talking about Rihanna. And what Rihanna did was she was so successful in making sure that women of color, not just African American women or black women, but women of color, that they are no longer looking at Victoria's Secret the same way. And because of the way that they had kind of carved out a niche that didn't allow us in the door, the fashion show is no more. So kudos to Rihanna, because I think that's incredible. I think it is incredible when a black woman is so successful, our counterparts can't be. So shout out to Rihanna. I'm loving everything about that, babies. Listen, they're trying to bring school spankings back. School in Texas has come back with it. It's the school in New Jersey is doing the same. Now, I am all for making sure that children have the discipline that they need to be successful academically and in life. Let me tell you what I'm not going to allow to happen. Nobody's going to spank my child, because, see, now you have people that work in the school districts that actually do not like children. They don't understand them. And we have so many of us that are living in areas that are not necessarily for us, and sending our children to these schools where they don't like us, that you don't need to put your hand on the child. Now, remember we used to get the paddling? I got one paddling my whole life. And actually, because I got caught up in something with somebody else. I was in high school. I was in the 10th grade. His name was Mr. Baker. He smoked cigarettes and drank coffee. His teeth were stained. His breath was stained. And he was fat. And I think he was mad about his condition in life. Whatever that was. And he hit me one time. And I went and told my dad. And he hit me no more. My dad said, you call me if it's a problem. Don't put your hands on him. Because the problem is, we don't have the grandparents and the great aunt mentality anymore. Now it is about, for many teachers, not all, it is about making their point. My dad used to say all the time, you can't mistreat somebody to get your point across. And that's a lot of what's happening in these schools. So bringing paddling back when you have not taken into consideration why the child is acting out. So here I go. Today I'm drinking a super antioxidant tea. I don't have any honey or any lemon in it. And this tea for antioxidants attaches itself to toxins in the body and pulls them out. so that when you expel your waste, you expel the toxins in your body. And they used to put it in iodine. The same thing will happen in iodine. They used to put iodine in everything. Remember, they used to put it in our bread and our cereal. You would read the ingredients and it would say iodine, because that's what helps filter out toxins. They don't do that anymore. I'm saying that to say the children who have wheat and dairy or gluten intolerance, so it could be a corn protein, the wheat protein, casein is the dairy protein, which is most common, wheat and dairy. If they have an intolerance or a sensitivity to that, then they don't think and process information the same way. So the child you've had to tell 3 times not to do that, they're not doing it necessarily because they're being obstinate or disobedient or challenging you in the classroom. It very well may be that their body is not able to break down a protein, and now that protein is operating. Wheat is like morphine on the brain. Dairy is like an opioid on the brain. So now you've punished this child for something that is biomedical. Most of us don't understand that as far as our own children, and they don't understand it in the classroom because they give a breakfast with a granola bar and a carton of milk and yogurt. And if your child has a dairy intolerance or wheat intolerance or both, like mine, they are not functioning the rest of the day. Just throwing that out there because we need to be mindful about what's going on in schools. And I know some parents. I have a very good friend who is very disciplined, played in the league for a number of years. He was like one of the first people that made it in our generation, growing up, played ball, bought his mama a house. You know, he's that dude. I think he played long enough, like he'll tell me I played long enough to give me a pension. He told me it's already a problem if my kids' teacher calls me. I said, well, teacher mouth ain't no prayer book. Now, I know my friends that are teachers, y'all get mad at me, but y'all know it's some not so good teachers out there, just like it's some not so good cops out there. So I'm not talking about every cop, I'm talking about the ones on the news. I'm not talking about every teacher, I'm talking about the ones in the news. So, because they don't put good teachers in the news. Well, let me take that back. That man who jumped on that kid, but you could clearly see it was a kid. The kid threw a ball at him. The man tried to turn and walk away, and he snapped. Maybe it's a show for teachers to snap, you know, because they talk about people that snap and go out and kill people, but they really be talking about crimes of passion and people who got quit or cheated on something, they go cuckoo la la. You know, most people that you messing with time and time again, they only however many days away from going ticky ticky boom boom, teachers included. So I'm not talking about those teachers. I'm talking about the ones, you know, the sexual assaults, the ones who just jump up and hit a kid. The ones, not necessarily the ones on Facebook, the ones that are doing other things. I'm talking about those teachers. You know, like the cops that are doing other things. See how it goes together. Anyway, I'm spending a lot of time on that. I am talking about the fact that I do not think teachers should have handguns in the classroom, and I do not believe that they should have paddles anymore. But I do think you parents need to take an active role. You need to be participatory in your child's education and be an advocate for your child. Because, you know, some teachers are just there for the check. And let's be honest. The way that the system is set up, in Texas in particular, the Texas Education Agency, they don't offer their teachers a lot of support. They've got this cookie-cutter curriculum, and they hold these teachers to a high accountability of teaching exactly what they've said, when the teachers don't have the ability, oftentimes, to deviate from that curriculum to make sure the children are on grade level to be able to do the work that's required. Their check oftentimes around the nation is tied to how well children perform on state adopted tests. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So what I am getting to is that teachers are frustrated. And the teachers that are frustrated, that don't really know how to connect with your child, especially those that don't look like us. Because it's well known, established that little white teachers don't know how to deal with little black boys. And they don't see our children as children. They don't identify with them. The little tongue-in-cheek cute things that little kids say, they don't necessarily always find them cute. Now, I'm not talking about every teacher. Certainly not talking about every white teacher, because all white folks not bad and all black folks are not good. I am talking about those situations where it can be problematic to have a teacher who has the ability to spank a child, especially a child they already don't like. So you need to pay more closer attention. And so I was talking about my friend who said, you know, when the teacher calls me, it's already a problem. You need to talk to your child. You need to find out what's going on from your child's perspective. And your child needs to feel comfortable enough to have a conversation with you. See, when something goes on, I've been doing it with my kids so long, and they know we have the kind of relationship. I don't have to ask my kids what's going on, but here's something somebody gave me, so let me give it to you. My friend, childhood friend that lives in Houston, her daughter's a junior this year. Since she has been in preschool, she's been asking her, who did she play with, because she was young, who did she eat lunch with, and did anyone make her feel uncomfortable? And then they went on with, what did you learn today? Did you teach her? You know, those kind of things. So I adopted that with my kids. Now my kids are, you know, I have one in middle school and one in elementary school. I don't have to ask, because I had my son, who is in elementary school, get in the car a few months back and say, hey, somebody made me feel uncomfortable today, Mom. I didn't have to ask the question. He's used to hearing it. He knows he can answer. And it's not too late. If you have a child that's in high school, start asking the question. You know, what happened today? Who'd you eat lunch with today? What did you do in your downtime? Start opening that dialogue. And then the final question, did anybody make you feel uncomfortable today? We'd have less children hiding in their room looking at people bullying them on the internet if we would ask the questions. We have to slow down ourselves. We are tired. We are overtaxed. Many of us are overwhelmed and underpaid. We're going through all of that. Ask the questions. And paddling should not be. And the fact that they think that's appropriate, and there are some people that actually thinking that's a good thing, that's a problem for me. Because I think we are disconnected. We are so disconnected. We had that mother, remember I reported on her as well as everybody else in the world about her coming and cussing her son out and talking to him bad and telling the teacher, because she wanted the teacher to know she was on her side, that she was not going to tolerate that. She went too far. Now the fact that she did it for social media shows that she too is deficient. That she needs someone to pour into her. She needs the likes to feel validated. She went about it the wrong way, but she was trying to demonstrate that she was participatory and active in her child's care. Now they've taken her kids away from her, and I think they're going to give her some parenting classes and help her understand. So we rush to judgment so quickly. We side with the teachers against the students. We say all these kids are crazy, but there are so many things that are going on in these schools. Did you know that approximately 5 years ago, I was doing the math, looking at my son. You saw the wheels turning. I was thinking about my son was in kindergarten. Okay. So approximately 5 years ago, the Texas Education Agency pushed the 5th grade curriculum to 3rd grade and pushed the 3rd grade curriculum to 1st grade. And then they said, you'd be amazed how much the 1st graders know. But if your child was actually on 1st grade level, they told you your child was not on grade level because your child could not do 3rd grade work. So as that child continues to progress at their actual level, they're being pulled out of classes, being given RTIs, all because the education agency decided 5th grade students need to do upper class work, and 3rd grade students need to do 5th grade work, and 1st grade students need to do what? 3rd grade work. So a 6th grader needed to be able to perform mentally on an 8-year-old level. That's a true story. Y'all can look it up. Check me, baby. So I'm saying all that to say that children also get frustrated when they feel like they're not performing. There is a lot that goes into children that act out. Now, I am not justifying children acting out, smart mouth and teacher, but I am saying these children have a lot going on in their lives. I remember when I was teaching school like 150 years ago, and I remember them telling me that I was being too lenient with the students. I had a student come to me and say he was going to miss my test. He had me first period because he was going to have to stand out that night. That meant hustle drugs because rent was due. So here's a 15-year-old boy trying to pay rent because his mother was a severe alcoholic and he had 3 siblings, all in elementary school. And listen, if I messed off my money and couldn't pay my car note, I'd just call home and tell my daddy and he would pay it. So how am I going to judge this child who's dealing with things that I've never had to deal with and wasn't dealing with as an adult? We need to be mindful about who we are talking to and who we're talking about when we start cookie cuttering and putting everybody in the same box, and now you're going to paddle. No, everybody not qualified to paddle. Some people don't like children. You need to think about that. All right, Henrietta Lack. Do y'all know who she is? She was sick and she was dying of cancer, and they used her cells unbeknownst to her. And this black woman, African American woman, has been associated with all kinds of medical technology, cures, advances. And so now they're actually going to give her her just due, and there is now going to be a portrait of her in the Smithsonian. Her children sued many years ago to having her be recognized as basically the mother of medicine. And that's my words, not theirs. And so she is responsible, her cells, so her actual DNA is responsible for the polio vaccine, gene mapping, in vitro fertilization, and that's just to name a few. So while there is this movement now by the orangutan running the Three Ring Circus from the Oval Office about us being deficient, O'Bannon and Breitbart and all of these things that we're hearing now, the Klan, because David Duke has arisen the Klan in such a way that they're no longer burning crosses in our yard, but they are in Congress. We see it with the ICE movement where they wouldn't give babies, little children, soap, toothbrush, toothpaste, and all they gave them was a foil blanket to lay down. We see that movement in the Senate and in our Congress people and in the orangutan. And so while they are telling us that we are less than, we have cured society globally on our backs. Once again, we are the originators. And so her sales, I just want to talk about a little bit about what she's done. She was a black tobacco farmer who ended up basically changing the world. Her sales allowed for the advance in cancer treatment, AIDS research, cloning, stem cell studies, and they've traveled in zero gravity to the moon. So, I think that we owe this woman a debt, all of us. We owe her to be proud, because remember I told you I was going to talk about black excellence today. And we owe her a trip to stand before her in her glory. And so the Smithsonian has done something to acknowledge who she is and what she has accomplished. And I think that we should take pride in that today, because in 1951, when she died at the age of 31 from a very aggressive cervical cancer, she was able to give her life, all no unbeknownst to her, because they didn't ask for permission. They just took those cells and started to work. She has changed the world for the better. And so I wanted to acknowledge Henrietta Lack. I want to talk about a little bit about Colin Allred. Colin Allred is a biracial man who went to my high school, Hillcrest High School, who is now a congressman. And one of the things that he said to me personally, because we've had face-to-face interface, you like the way I did that? One of the things he said to me was he talked about how he wanted to even the playing field and to have realistic wages and to increase the minimum wage, which is a big thing. People have been talking about that. And he talked about income and alleviating poverty, because Dallas, now he's more on the Dallas-Richardson line, but far north Dallas, Dallas has the greatest poverty rate in the United States when we're looking at all of the cities per capita. We are low. Child poverty is horrible. And so I'm saying that to say that he was on the right track. He doesn't really associate with the African American community, but he did make progressive efforts to at least reach out. But he's on his second white wife, and you say, well, why does that matter? I'm telling you, his mother was white, and oftentimes the woman that raised you or the man that raised you, that's what you gravitate to. So no tea, no shade. But the things that he was talking about were some African American, black, people of color issues. He is responsible for a bill, I believe this is his first one, for getting a bill passed in Congress, which President Trump, the orangutan in the Oval Office, actually signed. It is making animal cruelty a federal felony. I don't believe people ought to be out here beating up dogs, putting cats' tails on fire, you know, wringing chickens' necks and throwing them in the street. Whatever you do to an animal, chicken fighting, dog fighting, whatever. Okay. People. Congress. I need y'all to focus on people. When is it going to be a federal crime to shoot an unarmed black person so that we get these cases out of state court, put them in federal court so that we can actually get some real justice? Where is that bill? I mean, maybe he's working on it. Maybe he's working on it. But, dogs. Lions, tigers, bears, oh my. That's where we are with that. Colin, I'm going to need you to do a little better. I need you to see you do some of the things you said you were going to do. So this animal cruelty has officially become a federal felony after President Trump signed the bill into law on Monday afternoon. Bipartisan bill preventing animal cruelty and torture act is called PACT, P-A-C-T. I'd like a pact with you to stop killing unarmed black people. Or shoot people in the house, because guess what? The police are so panicky and scared. They're not just shooting Tatiana Jefferson in her house. They actually shot and killed an older white man in his house. They were on the outside and shot him. The police are not. We hear about the crimes against people of color, because those are the crimes that have been going on since they stole us, and you look in a Texas history book, forcibly settled us here in this country. But the police are so scared and panicky, they'll shoot anybody. It's not just us. I mean, several blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boys in Michigan that have been shot handcuffed sitting on the curb. So understand, it's a police brutality problem, but the focus, because they do want to emphasize the differences between black and white so they can continue to have this division between us, they focus heavily on that. Police brutality is the issue, and I'd like to see something come out of that from Congress. But, I mean, orangutan probably can't sign his name to that. I'm disappointed. That's what I'm saying here. I'm disappointed. You know, Dan Rather talked about the orangutan and the people that followed him was like a cult. Now, remember, Dan Rather has been very vocal, and he's a Republican, and he's been vocal about how Diane Sawyer has been another one, but he's been vocal about how these people just follow Trump blindly. I wish I knew the Greek word that, and I heard it years ago and I can't remember. It's a Greek word that says people will just follow blindly like sheep. That's where sheeple comes from. Sheeple and chattel are not the same. I've had people say something to that effect. It's not the same. Chattel is we had no choice. Sheeple, you can think. You don't have to be led to the slaughter. But that is what's happening. And now we have Trump, who is under impeachment. Nancy Pelosi came out. Y'all see how she's not, because I like Nancy Pelosi. I think it's very ironic that Trump won't take her over. He'll talk about anybody, but he really don't want to mess with Nancy. She's doing so much better with holding her head still, because she was kind of holding her head like a newborn for a little while. I don't know what that was about, but she got it together. But she said today they are going to issue the articles of impeachment against Trump. So many of his colleagues, counterparts, and cronies have gone to the penitentiary. You had 4 law professors, one of which I absolutely fell in love with, from Stanford. And I thought that the professor from Stanford did a tremendous job of explaining, using analogies. She was basically in her classroom sitting before the Senate. And Professor Pamela Karlan used an analogy to help people understand how the Constitution was far different than that ruling of a king. And so because the United States originates from people being fed up with the way that there was such tyranny in England and not being able to have a voice. Taxation without representation. Remember the Boston Tea Party? I'm making y'all go back to your history books. Y'all know history books. Me and my dad. And one of my concentrations in education was history. And so a little history lesson will tell you that taxation without representation meant they weren't going to pay for something when they were not represented in the court. They had no voice. Much like Puerto Rico has no voice, they don't get to send a representative. Guam is another place that's under American rule but has no representative in the House or the Senate. But this whole thing about impeachment and what she was using was an analogy to help people understand how Trump could not do what kings had done previously. And to that end, she used an analogy that said, y'all, it's kind of chilly out here on this porch. Missing my studio. She used an analogy and she said, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, can name his son Baron, but cannot make him one. Well, a Baron was like a duke, for lack of a better analogy. And so she was saying, even though he could do certain things, he could not just appoint and assign in a way where there was no oversight. And Melania Trump got upset and started talking about how it was not right to use a child and so on and so forth. And there was a senator that told Carlin that she was mean and hateful, and that's called projection. When someone tells you how they feel, but they're telling you that's who you are, that's called projection. They projected their feelings onto you. I won't call his name because he's an idiot. But, you know, and she has since apologized. I thought it was odd that Melania was so vocal, but I guess when they was hiding her away, remember nobody could find her, they were talking about where's Melania. I think they had her in the basement of the White House and had her in very intensive ESL classes. That's what I think. So now, you know, she's found her voice. Hear her roar. I think it's utterly ridiculous that here we are, where the President of the United States has conspired to bribe, intimidate like a mafia goon the President Zelensky of Ukraine with withholding $400 million. You've had people that were staunch Republicans. You had the three amigos, Mullen even coming out and saying something about Saunders, talking about him. And how he actually did the very thing he keeps saying he did not do. So we will wait to see, but I know many of you are talking about nothing's going to happen. So let's talk about that for a quick minute, because y'all's getting chilly. I'm not in the studio. Here's the thing. This was a fact finding, and that's what Congress does. They look at and they pull the facts, and then they issue the articles of impeachment and they give it to the Senate. What has essentially happened is Congress has said, you know what, we have enough information. They're going to have another hearing on Monday. But they've said we have enough information. We have 3 of 4 law school professors who are regarded as some of the best in the world as legal minds go on constitutionality. Saying, oh yeah, he definitely did commit treason. Well, okay, wait a minute. That's Cornell talking. They're saying he did obstruct justice. And that they are saying that he definitely, I throw those Koyas in there. And that based on the fact that he did not commit a specific crime, because it says high crimes and misdemeanors, but it also does not mean that you have to commit a specific statutory crime to be convicted of obstruction of justice. And that's what he did. He precluded and barred people from testifying before Congress. Congress has a legal right to require you to appear. They can subpoena you. Turley says that he did not vote for Trump, but he became the Republican star. So he is the only holdout that says that Trump should not be impeached. And he's saying basically it's a slippery slope. And anytime somebody does something, the people are going to say, oh, impeach, impeach. And he's not giving credence to the fact that Trump actually did try to get a whole foreign entity, a country, to investigate Hunter Biden, which is Joe Biden's son, who's running for president of the United States, and saying that he actually had done something. They always said, no, he didn't. There was no evidence to support that. Now, here's the bigger issue. Russia has invaded Ukraine, and they needed the $400 million from us to protect themselves. So now they're saying, you know what? I'm going to give you this shotgun so you can protect your house if you do something for me. So regardless of whether or not it actually happens, it's still done. And that was kind of the analogies that they were using during the impeachment hearings, when they were saying he didn't have to actually get the bribe accomplished to be at fault. That's not necessarily what's happening here. And so because of that, I think it's interesting that the Republicans keep trying to they keep trying to emphasize it didn't happen, so it didn't. So I walk in the bank with a gun and I say, and I think this was one of the analogies they used, you know, everybody lay down on the floor, wielding my firearm, and then as I'm running out the door, I forget to get the money. It's me that didn't get it accomplished. But the act of the actual crime exists by virtue of me walking in there with the intent. And so Trump's intent was verbalized, and that is why he should be impeached. But you know, it's ironic to me, and I go back to Dan Rather talking about the cultish mindset and behavior of these people trying to pretend like these things don't matter. I think it's ridiculous. I really think it's ridiculous that Melania had anything to say, because she has not said anything. She did say something when Trump said, when he talked about LeBron James' school. She did say something then, you know, but that might be because she probably liked LeBron. Once you go black, Melania, you never go back. You better stay away. Yeah, you're doing some strange things for some change. You know your background and your track record and your history means, you know, you will drop it like it's hot. Spread it wide and drop it low. We seen your pictures. Okay, never mind. Also, Trump's administration is going to cut food stamps significantly. 400,000 people will be affected in Texas, 328,000 in Florida, 225,000 in Pennsylvania, 176,000 in Washington State, 165,000 in Michigan, 118,000 in Wisconsin, and 97,000 in Georgia. And the statement was that they thought that they were affecting us. Well, we know the food stamps don't they don't exist because of us. We're not going to be the ones that are going to be the most affected. Just gonna throw that out there. So there's that. Zimmerman is trying to sue the Fulton, Trayvon Martin's family, his dad, his mom, Sabrina Fulton. Sabrina Fulton is running as an elected official for commissioner, and I think that's outstanding. But he is going to sue them. He is suing them because he's broke, which is obvious. Y'all don't need me to tell you that. But I do think that it is interesting that he's suing them because he cannot capitalize on his publicity. He cannot go out and charge for book signings and speaking and that kind of thing, because as soon as he amassed any amount of money, there's no statutory limitations on when they can file their civil suit against him. What I think is most ironic is that he actually got some 3K card carrying member who happens to be a member of the bar to file this lawsuit, because I do believe it's going to be thrown out. It's absolutely frivolous, and he's asking for $100 million. So he has sued Trayvon Martin's mother and father. And let me go back for those of you who have been hatched out of an egg. Trayvon Martin was murdered, 15 years old, by Zimmerman, who was a flashlight cop for his apartment. He was just a citizen who wanted to be something he couldn't be because he was a complete F up and failure. And so he was out there patrolling, and what happened is he engaged in a fight with Trayvon and got his butt whipped, grabbed a pistol, and shot the young man in the stomach. He is alleging that that trial that accused him of murder, which he was exonerated, and found not guilty, he is saying that it was all basically a conspiracy, and they used people unjustifiably to prove their case against him. And so he's saying that the young woman who had a hard time reading, who spoke 3 different languages, so the media tried to point her out as being illiterate and uneducated, and you know, the quote unquote Negro. He's saying that she was a farce, and that what she recounted that she heard on the phone while she was on the phone with Trayvon, none of which was true. All of which had been proven to be true by phone records. So the fact that some attorney would file a suit against Trayvon's mother and father, the publisher of a book, Brent Crump, who represented the family on a civil matter, the HBCU graduate, civil rights attorney Ben Crump, graduated from Florida A&M, as well as the prosecutors. He's asking for $100 million, and they're all defendants now, having to defend themselves against this ridiculous lawsuit. When this man has been going around the United States terrorizing black people, we actually have a black man in prison now for firing a gun at Zimmerman. And you say that out loud to yourself 3 times and tell me if it makes sense to you. I don't have time to hold. You do it when I'm off of here because I'm cold. But, you know, this is the world that we live in. We're still asking for the acknowledgement of our humanity when we should be demanding it, and I think that's coming. The Chicago Police Chief Eddie Johnson is only eligible for police officer pension and not chief pension. Someone sent that to me, and I think that's ridiculous, and I'm going to be looking into it. Before I leave, I want to talk to you briefly about the movie Queen and Slim. And so this is a spoiler alert. I'll give y'all a few minutes to sign off, because I want to talk about this briefly, and I want to talk about it again next week. But I feel like I'd be remiss if we didn't have this conversation, because I am very excited, overjoyed, zealously enthusiastic to have T.H. Moore of the book I Am, who is also a HBCU graduate and a member of Omega Psi Phi. Shout out to the Qs, the Divine Nine rep in our great Greekdom, who has a book called I Am. It is a wonderful read. I'm going to be interviewing him next week. I was supposed to interview him today, and unfortunately, because the studio never learned to swim, you're the boogie baby, because the studio is underwater, we couldn't get that interview done, but we will have it done next week. But he talks about how the lives of 2 middle-class, affluent, young black people living the American dream is changed when something happens in their neighborhood. And Queen and Slim is a movie that many people are saying, people are torn. People are saying, I wanted to like it and I couldn't. And other people are saying it's Oscar-worthy. I'm one of the people that I really, really wanted to like this movie, and I couldn't. Now, the soundtrack is great. Shout out to Lauryn Hill for the comeback, baby, because I'm believing in you. But it had a lot of gaps and deficiencies, a lot of holes. The movie spans over 6 days. I didn't think it was a realistic time frame for what's happening. I didn't like the fact that the movie emasculated the black man. She's making all the decisions where to go and what to happen. And I don't want to spoil it too much, because I am going to talk about it next week in depth. And I want people to tell me what their feelings are of it. But this movie being iconic, it ain't Love Jones, baby. Love Jones was iconic. And maybe it's my age. I'll take that. But it's not iconic. In as much as it doesn't allow the black man to be the black man. And I know Judge Joe Brown, they were talking about him and talking about how he was ridiculous when he was making a statement about how Harriet Tubman shouldn't be on the stamp before a black man. My tea is cold, y'all. And the people got mad about that. But I understood what he was saying. You cannot allow the black woman to overshadow the black man, because the black man is supposed to be the head. And since they stole us from our motherland, they have been emasculating the black man in front of our eyes, telling us he was unworthy of our respect. Now, I know I'm going a little deeper now. You saying, no, that's not what the movie is about. Yeah, it is. Because look at here. She doesn't even like him. She doesn't want to be on a date with him, and she actually talks to him real crazy. That's stupid. I plan to do a relationship segment, because some of y'all out here failing in these streets because that's how y'all talk to people. Now, Lord knows I get boogie, baby, and I really will get with you. But I see no need to be disrespectful if it's not necessary. I know that my tongue is like a two-edged sword, and life and death is in the power of the tongue. And so I guard my mouth, or at least I try to be mindful of guarding my tongue. I think it's ridiculous that here is a black woman, attorney. Now, she's broken and damaged. She's got some issues. They always write that into our stories, which is a story of life, but it's not every story. It's not. It does not have to be the comprehensive black story. And that's the problem that I have with many of the black movies, the black stories that are being told about who we are and what we are, that white America looks to understand us better. And this becomes a comprehensive narrative that many of us do not embody. She goes on a date with this man in a diner, but she's not really liking him. He is talking to her and trying to deal with all of her bruises and stripes and strifes. And she loses a case, and she's very upset because she is embodying what it means to be in this legal system as an African American or a descendant of an African in this country. And so she treats him bad. So let me tell you what's ironic about that. She was upset because her client was going to be committed to death. He had lost his final appeal. And she's sitting across from a brother, a black man who's done her nothing, as they say in Louisiana. And she's talking to him real crazy. If you respect the fact that this black man deserves not to die, and that you are embodying your blackness because it is a state of mind, not just a color, why would you mistreat the brother sitting across from you that you reached out to? Then they leave, and she gets in the car. Now, what self-respecting sister, or any woman for that matter, this is stupid. You get in a car with a man you do not know, you do not like, and you do not plan to see further. You allow him to take you where? To your home where you live. None of that makes sense to me. Why would you do that? That is how you put yourself in harm's way, sister. And then she takes his phone. She has no business getting his phone. Why are you bothering this brother's phone? You do not like him. You do not want to be with him. You talked to him bad. You mistreated him the whole time. Now you're taking his phone. What's going on here? And then because she takes his phone, he swerves, causes the cops to stop him. And instead of her sitting there letting him handle it, further emasculating him, she has something to say. And at this point, she embodies the bitter black bitch. And this sets them on a path of tragedy. Ooh, child. I sat in that movie with my man. And at one point, I literally said, I'm ready to go. And of course, he hit me with, oh no, you done threatened me to bring you to this movie. I can't fall asleep. I can't this, I can't that. So he was like, I was on punishment. He was like, no, you're going to sit here. But at one point I was like, I can't take it anymore. But I did sit through it. I want stories to be told where sometimes we do win. Because you guess what? Sometimes we do win, y'all. Sometimes we do. And every story that's told about us doesn't have to be tragic. I remember Dead Presidents. My dad said he wasn't going to see any more of those kind of movies because he was tired. And you know, my dad almost 85. So he was tired of stories being told about our situations where we never get away. He said the white man robs the bank, he gets away with the money and the girl. The black man gets away, well, you know, we got dead presidents. Yes, that happens. And our reality is oftentimes sad, but not all the time. And when you pay your money, you know, for us to go to the movie, it was 17 something. So we done spent a hot 20 going to the movie. Don't we deserve an escape? Don't we deserve every now and then to high five and get away with it? And you know, The writer, director of this movie is a black woman. Shout out. Because it's hell trying to get a movie to the big screen. And I don't know if Hollywood is not allowing us to tell happy stories. And I think that's part of it, because you can't forget that when 20 years ago, when Harriet Tubman's movie was first written and the writer was sitting there with the big Hollywood executives and they were saying they love it, the exec said that they were going to get Julia Roberts to play Harriet Tubman as if this was not a true story about a real person. So I don't want to be too hypercritical about the storyline. And I know that we deal with diminished budgets. But why is it that Oprah can't give some money? And why is it that Tyler Perry wasn't involved in this project? Because Tyler wore a dress long enough so that he could and told stories about us black women don't have no man. We broken, we beaten, we molested. Our mama sold us into prostitution to hold on to her husband. We'll do anything for some change. I mean, he told all them stories about us so he could build a 400-acre studio. I don't know if the means justifies the ends or not. I'm just saying that's what happened. We're going to have to, now Tyler just opened his studio. So I'm saying this to Black Hollywood, stop going to Hollywood to tell our stories. Holler at Tyler so we can get some stories told about us. Because you know what? I would have liked to have seen a happier ending. And even if the ending had to be tragic, I would have liked to have seen some other things in that. So, next week I'm going to be talking to T.H. Moore about the book I Am. You can get it in exactly 4 days on Amazon. I'm going to put it on my site. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it on his site, T.H. Moore, M-O-O-R-E. Y'all, I'm cold. He tells a different kind of story. He looks at the differences in the mindset, but he talks about us in a very real way. The dialogue and the exchange is something that you all will appreciate. It's not like The Help when she was trying to write in the black vernacular. I actually wrote them and told them next time hire somebody. And I was available, but you get anybody in any street corner to help you understand how to write that. Because I don't use words I can't spell and many of us don't. So, somebody told me one time, spell finna. They were from D.C. and I said, well, we finna go over here because I thought it was a safe space. And they told me I couldn't spell finna, and I said F-I-N-N-A, and they said, no, that's Fina. I said, no, Fina is a gas station. It's F-I-N-A. I don't use words I can't spell. So with that being said, many of us don't. We're intelligent enough to be able to write and spell the vernacular. This brother is intelligent enough. He's a great writer. He really writes in the way that we talk. You're going to love the book. You're going to love talking to him about the things that he's talking about. He is talking about police brutality, but he's also talking about the black life experience, the African American experience in this country in a very real way. And so, yes, I am saying, he does deal with the reality of how we live. And that story does need to be told. Queen and Slim, it wasn't a bad movie. It did have some deficiencies, but it just made me think to myself, when are we going to have a story with a happy ending? Even Girls Trip, her husband was running around with an Instagram slut, and she had to find her power and her voice to be alone. And she had been manipulated by white book publishers to continue to live a lie. When are we going to tell some good story? Because guess what? Our lives are not always bad. Someone made the comment on a post, if you didn't like Queen and Slim, you didn't like facts. What facts? What facts? That black people get caught up in ridiculous situations? Yes, that's a fact. Is that the comprehensive narrative of our life? No, that is not a fact. And so I'm going to see y'all next week in the studio. And I'll be with you to unpack Queen and Slim. You remember how the preachers used to do a long time ago? Y'all, I'm thinking about this. Y'all tell me what y'all want to do. But I think I'm going to unpack Queen and Slim from a relationship aspect and then from the aspect that tells a true story about who we are as a people. And so I think I could get 2 full weeks out of it. Remember the preacher used to do that? He'd do a whole sermon on 4 weeks out on just a few Bible verses. Well, I got some teaching and some preaching in my background. So, I'm thinking about doing that because I saw it was a lot of symbolism in the movie. I understood what the writer was trying to do, and I want to talk to you about it more. But next week is T.H. Moore with the book I Am. I want to thank Texas Premier Technology Institute, TPTI, as a sponsor of my show. They have an 85% rate of actually getting people employed. So if you go through that program, they get you ready to sit for the certifications test. They do Microsoft, Oracle, cybersecurity. It's an excellent program. The brother that started that program is a non-profit school. I think that's important. He tells a story. He was a CD his way out of school his whole life, and now he has built himself to really a tech wizard, and has this school because he said college is not for everybody. And with that being said, I want to thank TPTI with their 85% job rate. That's incredible. I want to thank Simply Adore. It is the product that will turn your hand from sandpaper into luxury. We've interviewed her on the show. She's a sponsor, and T.H. Moore is a sponsor of the Black Tea Sip. We'll be talking to him next week on the 13th. This is Coy. I'm cold. I'm going in, y'all, but I'll see y'all next week. Diamonds, pearls, and jewelry curls, and we'll do it again in a minute.